All right, so Jon Jones is implicating that he might not be fighting International Fight Week against Stipe, okay? So everybody who thought this fight was in stone, it's not. And Jon Jones has made that very clear now. He said, well, we'll talk about it. But there are 3 options for why he's doing this. 3, not 4, 3. And it's interesting because you have one option that would be very exciting. You got another option that is like kind of like whatever, not that exciting, kind of sucks. And then you got one that would be a catastrophe. Could be awesome, could be meh, or it could be, oh my God, no. And I'll tell you exactly what those 3 options are, and we will go from there. So, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, I think I have gotten much more hyped on this fight personally. Like, I want to see it. I want to see Jon Jones versus Stipe. I have gotten much, much, much more hyped for this fight, and I'll tell you guys exactly why in the video also. And yeah, there's a lot of things moving around in the background that I will share with you guys. Okay, so go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Like the video. Please like the video. Just like it, man. And then share it with your friends, whatever, because guess what? It helps me, and I appreciate it immensely. And then go ahead and check out Yo Kratom, because Yo Kratom is the best place for you to get Kratom on the entire interweb, okay? All the strains, super cheap. You will love it, dude. Give it a look, Yo Kratom. All right, so here we go. Jon Jones has now gone on Twitter and said, you know what? After all, I don't know. I really got to look at things with my team. Someone was asking him about fighting Stipe International Fight Week. Okay. Now, everybody thought that this fight was in stone, right? Everybody thought that this was like, it's go time. This is happening. Well, is it though? Is it happening? Because we don't actually know. Because if Jon says I need to go talk to my team, then he's implicating that maybe he's not actually going to fight International Fight Week. Now, what's your immediate reaction to that? Immediately. As soon as Jon says, well, you know, here's exactly what he said, actually. He said, I feel like this was sprung on me, and I'm going to have to talk to my team. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys are thinking the same thing, which is sprung on you. You called him out by name in the octagon. You said, I'm going after, I want the heavyweight GOAT. I want that. Give me Stipe. You're the one who said that. And then it was sprung on me. Okay. Well, what he meant was doing an International Fight Week was sprung on him. That's what he meant. He didn't say, give it to me International Fight Week, unless I'm totally mistaken, but I'm pretty sure he just said, I want Stipe. So he's talking about International Fight Week. Now, that is one big indicator of what is probably going on. Okay. So there's that, right? But again, as soon as he goes on Twitter and says, I feel I need to talk to my team, now the fight is in doubt. Bottom line, the fight is in doubt because he has just made it in doubt, where we thought that is exactly what we were looking at International Fight Week, which is very exciting. Okay. So what has happened between then and now? A lot, actually. Okay. A lot. So I'm trying to think which is the options, what the 3 options are that I should run through. I'm talking about like in what order, like what's, cause I want to actually end with the one that I think that it actually is. Okay. But actually, you know what I really want to say? I want to talk about why I'm so excited for this fight. Here's why I'm so excited for this fight first, and then I'll tell you guys why this is happening. So the reason I'm excited for this fight is because when you really let the wow, like wear off a little bit on the fight with Gon, you find yourself in a position where you're like, well, what did we really see, right? We didn't get to see him stand up. What we saw is that Jon Jones is a tremendously better grappler than Cyril Gane. It was like I was just talking to someone on the phone, my buddy from Brawl Season, Ian, and it's like basically what we saw in that fight was like the Randy Couture versus James Toney fight. You know, James lights out Toney is going to try MMA. It's like, all right, put him in there with Randy Couture. I don't know if this is before your guys' time, but bottom line was everybody in the world knew exactly what was going to happen. Randy's going to take him down. He's going to smash him. It's exactly what happened, right? And this was not dissimilar from that. I mean, I would assume Gane's ground game's a little bit better than James Toney's, but you're looking at almost that level of a mismatch on the ground. So we didn't really see anything on the feet from Jon. Stipe's wrestling is obviously tremendously better than Cyril Gane's. Tremendously better. Okay. So we don't really know how that's going to happen. Like, we haven't seen how Jon matches up at heavyweight on the feet. He looked good, but I don't think we really know yet. I'm not questioning whether or not, I mean, I still would pick Jon to win, of course, but I'm not sure it's as crystal clear as everybody thinks, dude. I really don't. And I'm very interested to find out what happens, because Stipe is one of those guys. It's the other thing too. Stipe does not like the spotlight. He doesn't like it at all. And I've been harping on his mic skills, but here's the other thing about that. The more you stick a mic in his face and you talk about, oh, Jon Jones is going to smash you, like guys like him, they don't talk their way through things like this. Like, that's not what they do. Okay. Like, he's not going to go, oh, he thinks he's going to blah, blah, blah. And then he talks, right? He actually, the more you talk at Stipe like that, the more challenging of a fight it's going to be for you. Because guys like him that are not good talking into the mic, they internalize that shit, dude. And they're like, they can't, because there's no way to get it out. It's like, a man challenges you. A man sticks their finger in your chest and they challenge you. Everybody gets that feeling of like, oh yeah. I mean, certainly all of us. Like, let me just qualify that. All of us, any of you guys, my friends and my viewers who are, my friends that I'm talking to all the time, which is you guys. Obviously, if I walked up to you and you didn't know who I was and I stuck my finger in your chest and I was like, hey, bitch, how about if I take that sandwich you're eating and I shoved it down your throat? How would you like that? How would you like eating your sandwich at 5 times the speed you wanted to because I took it and I shoved it down your throat? You like that? Would you like that? You're going to be like, how about I take this fork and I stick it through your eye, Jesse on Fire? Would you like that? Would you like that, Jesse on Fire? All of you guys would do that because all of my fans are tough guys, not pansies. You're a tough guy. That's why you like my channel, right? So like, at the very least, if you were capable of speaking back, you would say a thing like that. If you weren't, you might actually stick the fork through my eye, right? You might actually do it. So the point is, like, a person presses you, you are going to respond in one way or another. And so the point is, if you don't have that like valve where you can release that pressure, which is the ability to respond verbally, okay? Like if you have the ability to respond verbally, then that's like the pressure valve where it's like, and it lets the pressure out. If you don't have that, it just builds, dude. And it's like, it's choking you, okay? And now some people that might make them fight a little bit more reckless, whatever. Stipe's not one of those people. He's just going to focus. The more you talk, the more confident he's going to get because every time someone has ever talked in his direction, he's shut them up by beating their face in. So he's going to go in super confident. That doesn't mean he's going to beat Jon. I'm just saying, psychologically, this is a great fight that I'm very excited to see, how it shakes out. So that is what it is. Now, why is Jon waffling on the fight? Okay, so let's start with the worst case scenario, okay? So worst case scenario where I was saying this would be catastrophic if this is why, is Jon won the belt. He just got out of how long, like why was he not fighting for 3 years, guys? Why was he not fighting? Now, I'm sure that it's a culmination of reasons, but one of the main ones was that he was negotiating with the UFC, okay? Now, Jon does not have any love lost with the UFC when it comes to business, obviously, right? He really genuinely doesn't. Like whether it's true or not, believes that the UFC has been taking advantage of him and taking more value than they've been giving back to him throughout his career. That doesn't mean it's true, but that is certainly how he views it. So one option is that he came out, he did what he did, and now he recognizes how valuable he is to the UFC and how absolutely critical he is to them. And maybe he's going to hold their feet to the fire, right? Maybe he's like, I don't know, man, really, I need to talk to my team, Because if I'm going to turn around a fight like that fast, I mean, listen, I know I just signed a new deal, but I think I'm going to need a little bonus to turn it around that fast. I don't know. Or maybe it's not even about speed. He just wants to hold their feet to the fire because he's like, who do they got? Let's say that I bowed out. Who do they got? Like he recognizes what a critical component of their negotiation with Francis that he actually is, and he's going to play hardball negotiating. That is option one, and that is a catastrophe for us, okay? For all of us, the guys that are sticking forks in eyes and are, you guys and me, our collective group, right? Even if you've never been in a violent altercation before, if you're a person who online, someone says something to you and you bite back at them in the comments, you're still the same as us, dude. You're the same. You don't like people sticking fingers in your chest. So we're all one big collective group of amoebas that jump at people if they mess with us. It's not really necessarily a good trait, but that is what we are. So all of us, it would be a catastrophe because we all want to see Jon Jones fight. And if he is going to negotiate against the UFC, this could turn into a very long thing again. And in all honesty, he really does have him by the balls. If you really think, I'm sure he got a really good deal. And candidly, normally I encourage people to negotiate given the position that they're in. But this would be kind of a pretty like, you just signed a new deal. You won one fight, and then you're going to turn around and hold their feet to the fire again. Even if I was his manager and I knew we could get another couple $1 million for this initial fight, to do it, I would ethically, I wouldn't do it. I'd be like, dude, we just signed a deal. Like, we made an agreement with them. Come on. But that is option number one, and that's catastrophe. Okay. Option number two, which would be best case scenario for all of us, is that behind the scenes, they are talking to Francis. There is a chance that Francis is going to come back because, in my opinion, and this is honestly, like, I just did a video about him last night. My opinion on Francis is constantly evolving. But like what I saw since last night and right now is all the stuff with Tyson Fury and Usyk, okay? And that genuinely makes me believe that Tyson Fury's people have been using Francis as a negotiating position against other boxers that were much more likely fights to happen. Where it's like, because again, in negotiations, it's all about options. It's actually, no, options. Well, yes, options. But like, it's the person that needs the other party the least is in the strongest position. And so if you have some big blockbuster fight over here, then the other party that you're negotiating with, you're like, look, man, I don't need this deal, dude. I mean, if you, hey, tell me which fight. We want 70%. We want you to take 30 because that's where they're negotiating right now. Tyson Fury and Usyk, they're negotiating 70-30, right? They're like, we want 70%. You can have 30, which is exactly what they're worth. 100%. That is exactly what they're worth. I don't care what records are or what, like, who's more likely to win the fight, whatever. That's irrelevant. That's not what drives pay-per-view numbers. As we found out when Jake Paul fought Tommy Fury and it did 775,000 views or buys or something like that. Or I think that's what I read it was. 775 or something. I might be confusing that with 285. I don't know, but it was an outlandishly high number versus what you would expect. Okay. So that's not what drives buys. Tyson Fury, that is what is going to drive the buy. 70-30 is fair. You'll get plenty of money. But nonetheless, using the Francis fight as a leveraging position is just smart business. It's not their responsibility to take care of Francis. Francis is not their people. That's why you need a team, because Francis's team would be the ones responsible for Francis. Right now, who is responsible for Francis? Who is responsible for making sure that Francis gets taken care of? That's what I'm saying. The absence of a management team as the first unrestricted free agent who had a UFC title when they became a free agent. It's just, I can't talk about this topic without bringing up every single time how absolutely absurd that is. So anyway, so my point is though that now that Tyson Fury is openly negotiating with Usyk, what are Francis's options? What are his options, dude? He's gonna have to come back to the UFC, okay? And honestly, now the UFC can kind of be like, hey, remember the offer that we offered you before? It's gonna be about $1.5 million less per fight now, maybe. I mean, I don't know if that would, or maybe they won't do that. Maybe they just want to get him back in. Who knows? But the bottom line is, if they have the Francis fight as a maybe, They would scrap the Stipe fight in 2 seconds. There is no love lost between the UFC and, as an organization and Stipe. I don't really understand why. I don't think it's just because he's not marketable, because the UFC does take care of their guys, and they clearly do not take care of Stipe or care about him like at all, And like I said, I've said this a billion times before. I've heard that there is some kind of like personal conflict between Stipe and I believe it's either Sean Shelby or Hunter. I don't know. There's one of these, or Mick Maynard, maybe one of these, like, the four main guys, Dana, Hunter, Sean, Mick. One of those guys I've heard has a personal problem with Stipe. So I don't know. Again, that's just gossip. I can't verify that on my own, but I've heard that. So they would scrap Stipe for Francis in 2 seconds if they actually had Francis on the line to potentially sign. And Francis just did an interview with Brett Okamoto where he said he's not afraid of Jon Jones. He would fight him twice a week and I totally believe that. So, which brings us to the real reason why he is almost certainly doing this, okay? So, I, for better or worse, have a brain that is kind of like Jon Jones's in terms of like, I can like impulsivity and like excitement. He's a very extroverted guy. He's really good at performing in front of people. Listen, like obviously he's done plenty of things that I would not do. I don't like luckily I don't like booze like that. So I have, been saved from that type of behavior just out of sheer like biological luck that I don't like booze. But there are certain personality traits that he has that I recognize. And so I can tell you that the way that I experience things like he just experienced are like, okay, the fight is on Saturday. I don't need to worry about anything after that. That's the only thing that matters, right? So it's kind of like, well, I'll cross those bridges when they come because they're coming after this huge event. I don't need to really think too much about that until the event happens, right? It's hard to explain. It's like, if I'm going on, like, hopefully I did a good job explaining that. So he goes into the fight, he wins the fight, and it's like he's on top of the world. He calls out Stipe, and you're like, you're just kind of like, you're taking it all in. I want Stipe. They start saying International Fight Week, and you're kind of like, all right, international, you're hot. You're like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, it's like Wednesday after the fight, and you're like, all right, International Fight Week. And this is the first time where I would, and I imagine Jon also, would like sit down and actually kind of think for a second and go, all right, okay, so International Fight Week, cool. And then you're like, wait, so what is that, July 16th? And then you go, June, May. Dude, my fight camp is going to start in like 5 weeks. And he just now realized how quickly he's going to have to turn around to a fight camp. And that, I almost guarantee you, that's why that's the middle ground. It's the least interesting. It's not like, it's not a catastrophe where he's going to start grinding the UFC, which is possible. It's not awesome that they might actually do the Francis fight. It's this middle one where Jon just all of a sudden realized like, oh man, I don't want to jump right back into a camp. Like that's and again, I'm not saying this if this sounds like I'm saying this is a positive trait. I'm saying it's an enormously negative trait in my life that I recognize in other people, which is long-term thinking or like that kind of thing, like where just a thing like this where you might say that night, like International Fight Week, let's do it. You just don't even like think about it. You're all, yeah, International Fight Week. All right, let's rock and roll, dude. Absolutely. Behind the scenes. And then it's like, then as soon as you calm down a few days later, then you really think and you're like, wait a minute. Like I've agreed to so many things. I've agreed to so many things in my life where like, as soon as the realization of what it is, like comes into focus, I'm like, oh my God, what? And then ask Gabrielle sometime. Like when she's on a live stream, just be like, I don't know how you would ask this question, but a million times, like I've agreed to things. And then when it actually gets there, I'm like, dude. And she's like, are you serious? We talked about this 2 months ago. I'm like, I know, but I didn't like actually think that 2 months was ever going to actually happen. I didn't think I was actually going to have to do this. And I guarantee Jon just all of a sudden was like, oh shit. So I would only get 4 weeks off? Fuck that, man. I just made $10 million. I want to chill for a few months, man. I don't want to have to jump right back into camp. That's why. That's my bet at least. It could be any of them, but that's my bet, is he doesn't want to jump right back into camp. So, anywho, that is the situation. And, listen, I really hope that they do that fight. Obviously I would prefer if it was Francis, but I don't think turning him around for International Fight Week with Francis is very likely because they would have to sign Francis so quickly. And again, who knows what's going on behind the scenes. The only reason I'm even really entertaining that it could be Francis because Francis's options are non-existent. Like Tyson Fury is fighting Usyk. Unless he's got something going on with Deontay Wilder behind the scenes, but how are you negotiating that? You don't have a management team. So, it's unfortunate that he is having to learn this lesson the way that he's learning the lesson, which is like, dude, you can't do this on your own. I can't talk about this topic without bringing that up just because it's like, it's so important if he wants to have success that he has to get a team in place immediately. And if I were him, I would just hire Markel again. Like I would just put my original management team right back in place. Now that they're not at CAA, what does that matter? Like, what does that matter? Like, see, the way that these organizations work, by the way, if this is not interesting to you, feel free to sign up. But like the way that these organizations work is if you work at CAA and you're an agent, okay, all that means is that you have access to the resources at CAA. So as an example, you need someone to review his contract, a lawyer. So you hand the attorney the contract, and the attorney at CA will review the contract. If you're independent, you hire an attorney to do that, right? if you need to do X, Y, it's like pooled resources. There's no one at CAA that is like giving you clients. It's just that you can, as an example, you're like, dude, we want to put on this fight. Hey, can you connect me with blah, 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 who does this kind of deal with this kind of promotion, whatever, like whatever you need, like you have people that you can call on your own team that can connect you with other people. Like there's no special thing that just because you're at CAA is any different than if you're independently managing on your own. Like there's no difference there. You already have all the context. So like if it were me, I would just put it back on. I don't even know if he would take it, but I'm just saying like clearly there was a lot of groundwork done given that he was in Wembley Stadium in the ring with Tyson Fury when he had management. And now, you know, I just don't understand why anyone would have thought they could do this on their own. But anyway, that's what I got. I love you guys. Subscribe to the channel. Peace.